icon's still there.
All right, well, I guess we are live. So this is the Blue Collar Off-Road podcast, and today we are here with Cody, Graham, and Richie, and myself, Luke, just to talk about how we got into wheeling, where we wheel, what we wheel with, and who we wheel with, which would be Backyard Built Off-Road. They are a NEA approved, or like a associated group, so that means that we wheel a lot of private land, club related. It's pretty cool. So I got into off-roading through a lot of YouTube videos and being a poorish kid and buying a $500 Cherokee that had no floors. We put me and Kish went over the top and me and Richie went over the top and we did the floors. We put a bunch of work into the motor and it was absolutely garbage because two 16-year-olds hammered it out.
You did this all in your first vehicle?
Yep.
Hold on. You put floors into your Cherokee that you bought for $500.
Yeah.
Did the floors cost more than the Jeep itself?
Yes.
Typical XJ. I love it. Happy to be here.
Are floor pans actually that expensive for these things?
Oh,
Yeah, because I had to put the entire floor pan in. It goes all the way from the firewall to the trunk. We put floors in.
Wow.
With a 110 flux welder.
That's all you need.
Jesus.
And we were teaching ourselves how to do everything at the same time.
But Graham here is the director at large from Backyard Built?
One of them.
Large and in charge.
I wouldn't say that much, but...
Yeah, Graham's pretty tiny.
Well,
yeah. That's all. That's your intro? Is you just did floors in one XJ? I know you had like 4.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm kind of bad at doing this first time and all that. But yeah, no, so that thing was trash. We threw some S10 leaf springs that we bought at the local junkyard for $50, a set of Rubicon Express front coil springs in it, and I sent that thing on 235/75 R15 Goodyear Wrangler ATs for a solid 6 months until I ripped the leaf springs out of it. I did the same thing to my other XJ, but that thing got sold. I bought a 98. It was cool. I wheeled that thing and drove that thing for a solid 3 years. It ended up with like a Bronco 44 and 8 1/4 that was welded in there on 35s as a daily. Then I had a nice little run-in with the Connecticut State Police, so that thing got yeeted. I bought a ZJ buggy, and I'm not really going to talk about that any more than this. And then from there, I bought my current 97 Cherokee for $300 that just needed a transmission. And now the thing's on tons, and yeah.
What are the axles out of?
04 F250.
Ooh. What are we looking at for tires?
40-inch Nittos. NP 231 Dana 20 doubler going in at the moment. Stretched to 113-inch wheelbase, so I guess 13 inches total.
School bus is what you're saying.
Yes, a big old school bus with links and a tractor engine that likes to explode and like 4 sticks.
Yeah, I think it's funny you glazed over the 5 motors that it's had.
Wait, how many motors did you say?
5.
5 or 6.
Jeez,
No, we have the 5th one sitting on the shelf waiting to go in, with number 4 currently in the Jeep,
But
and
that one's
very
fine.
unhappy.
It's not going to blow up. It'll be okay.
But question,
Richie,
how many Cherokees have you had, Richie?
I have had 3.
Okay, and how many motors have you gone through?
Well, technically 1 per vehicle, but my first Cherokee, I stopped using it because I put a quarter-size hole in the very first piston in the motor.
You're not helping my cause here, because what I'm trying to get at is it's only Gray, or not Gray, it's only Luke that has this fucking problem. No one else in the world has this problem except you, Luke.
You know, if we bought motors that had less than 300,000 miles on them for more than $100, you'd be okay.
Bro, the first motor that I
fair.
put in had 80,000 miles on it and only lasted for 3 months.
Yeah, because it was probably sitting for years, and that doesn't do anything for a motor.
Hey, Marvel
health-wise.
Mystery Oil, turn that thing over a few times. She's good to go.
Oh, don't fire it up on brake clean?
No.
Oh my god.
And to be fair, the motor that I blew a hole in the piston on had over 300,000 on it, and I ran it for an hour on the highway while it was in the red on the temperature gauge.
That's not good.
Yeah, well, I'd say that one deserved it. You know, it
Yeah.
didn't owe you anything.
No, that whole Jeep he got for like $300. We couldn't get it to go into 4 low. And so we were jumping the thing in 4 high, and it finally died after we jumped it into a mud pit, and the water ended up getting up to the stock airbox.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sounds safe.
Well, you know, this is high IQ 18 and 19-year-old Luke and Richie.
No. Oh, wait. Yeah. We were 18, 19.
Yeah, we were.
So, just some kind of your intro into off-roading, Richie?
I'm sorry?
Was Luke kind of your intro into off-roading, or?
He wasn't part of it. I was always into quad and dirt bikes growing up. I was always into, big trucks and everything. And I became friends with Luke back at the beginning of high school. And, we started hanging out. And so while he was watching YouTube videos, I was watching them with him. And, I kind of got roped into helping him rebuild his first Cherokee somehow. And it just kind of kept going from there.
Can I just interject that part of the reason that I might be popping motors and whatnot is what got us into wheeling was watching the OG Busted Knuckle and Mad Ram early rock bouncing videos. So that's how I thought we had to wheel.
Yeah, I know exactly the videos.
High school Luke was extremely entertaining to go wheeling with. There was a lot of noise, but it didn't really go anywhere.
See, that's the thing I'm curious about. I know you used to have was it a black Cherokee?
The black 98.
Yeah, what did you do to that one? Was it just the axles?
I did axles, full stiffeners. Eventually it ended up with I think rough country long arms. It was a really budget build with 2.5 inches of lift, 35s, 456s, and it was just my daily. I drove that thing. I literally put 40,000 miles on it in 3 years with a 6-month axle build in there. So it was just my daily. I took it to Ma Bell. I went to one NEA run. I wheeled it in Richie's property multiple times, and I learned very change out Dana 44 parts, including the stub shafts and the lockouts. That was cool. It had a lovely front end collision, which is part of the reason that the state of Connecticut was very keen on me taking it off the road. But yeah, it was a really good Jeep. We stiffened it, just worked through the kinks, but yeah.
Yeah, and that is a fun fact, is most of the trails on my property got started out by me and Luke just slamming his Jeep through shit.
That is how the Green Loop came to be. It was a quad track that I just found a way to get my 98 Cherokee through. Also
That's how
funny.
I ended up sinking my first Jeep. Was just trailblazing through the woods and ended up in a pond.
Well, thankfully, we rode this on the quad first. So that was big brain, and we made sure that there was no ponds.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, that would have been a smart idea. Oops.
Now I know you don't want to talk about it. You did mention it. Now the ZJ buggy. Why did you build that over? Not over another Cherokee, I guess, but I mean, what? It doesn't seem like you were really
Thinking?
part of clubs before when you were building that, and it doesn't sound like you're wheeling, not experience, but you're wheeling. The places you were going required you necessarily to have a buggy. Was it just like the idea of having the buggy, and
Oh
then
no, this
that's
was
what got you
literally
into the more, I don't want to say hardcore, but more organized wheeling that we've been doing now?
so to be honest with you, no. That was literally the product of one conversation and talking with the guy that built the roll cage for it in his garage. And the Sawzalls came out. He kind of messed around with the Rhode Island Trail Slayers. So he was friends with a lot of I believe it was the Slayers. I'm not positive, but the group that was very big in cutting F&F. So we were talking, and I built it with the Dana 50 and the 10.5 because I wanted to build a reliable rig on 37s that I could go wheel anywhere and do anything in. I was talking with him, and I was like, down the road, I want to make it so that the cage will be able to be kind of modular. Like I can do something to make it more of a buggy down the road. And he's like, oh, yeah, no. And I've known this dude for a very long time at that point in time. So I kind of I just trusted him. And he's like, what we should do to make it easier for me is, and since what you want in the end is to build something that can go and run black and red trails, so why not remove the body to make it easier to get down them? And we cut everything up, and it ended up being a horrible choice.
Yeah, having seen before and after pictures of it, I definitely think you went the wrong way with it. But
dude, that thing would have been so sick as a if I'd left it full bodied and actually taken the time I put into Barry to have made it a nice streetable Jeep.
When it was full body?
Huh?
Do you have pictures of it when it was full body?
I've seen
Yeah,
it.
I do.
Very few. Very
I'll
few.
have to check it out.
It looks pretty fucking badass.
Yeah, it was a cool Jeep.
What was done to it before you chopped it all up?
He had the axles under it. I know that.
I had the axles under it. I had stretched it 4 inches. It was sitting at 111-inch wheelbase. So I'm sorry, 110. So I had just punched the wheelbase right out, and it was good. I should have left it alone. It had Clayton rear 4-link set up in it. The front end needed work, and I found that out after I chopped it up. I would have found it out anyway, but I should have rebuilt the front suspension on it and just left it the fuck alone. That thing was fucking beautiful.
How'd you find out the problems after you took off the front end?
I found them. But we'll get to that later.
I was gonna go more with the fact that it hopped.
Well, yeah, that too.
But it still hops.
They all hop. It's just
They
about
all hop,
how
but
much they hop.
Gotcha.
this thing would hop almost instantly.
Yeah, and it was aggressively.
Yeah, so I built a mid-arm radius arm setup because I wasn't really super concerned, and I had plans to bring it back to the guy that did the roll cage to do a 3-link, so it wasn't a big deal, whatever, I'll get it fixed eventually, but certain things happened and it just never ended up working out like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where you had the mid arms on that thing, because it wasn't at the cross member. It wasn't
They
quite
were
from the short arms.
26 inches long. So they mounted up right before the cross member, hard welded to the body, which was part of what led to your issues because my mounts were wider because I didn't mount it inboard. I just mounted it to the body. And, when I sold those axles to you, that ended up being a problem.
Mm. Yeah, and that's why mine are mounted on the frame and not inboard a little bit. It's because yours were mounted on the frame as well.
Yeah,
I never
and
thought about it that way.
the issues that happened with those axles, I never ended up finding out because I literally never drove the thing other than I drove it around the block once just for S&Gs because it was going off to go and just get a hybrid roll cage like what I have currently in my blue Jeep. So I was going to work out the rest of the stuff later because the cage builder wanted it when the cage builder wanted it, and headlights and the rest of that didn't matter that much.
Yeah, fair enough.
But so, Cody,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you had your first Jeep in a pond. You gotta explain how this correlates you into the current three-linked fucking very,
God.
very built for a stock axled rig.
So pretty much, this was a 1995 Cherokee that I had. So it was actually technically my second Jeep. My first Jeep was a 96 ZJ, and that thing sucked. I overpaid so much for this stupid thing. Had over 250K onto it, but I didn't know what I was doing. I hopped in. I'm like, dude, this thing's got leather, four-wheel drive, big tire, 31s. At the time, I thought they were big tires.
Oh,
But
yeah.
dude, these things were spanked to all hell. I'm sitting there, I'm sitting at my house, and my buddy rolls up in a new XJ. Thing was sick, because I've always loved XJs. Like, that was I'd see an XJ go down the road at, like, I was probably 10 years old. I'm like, ooh, that thing's cool. I want one of those.
Really? You're a
Yeah,
weird
I'm
10-year-old.
a
You're
horrible
a
person,
weird kid.
Like, and it was only the old bodies. I wasn't a huge fan of the new bodies until I got my current Jeep. Actually, no, it was my 99 5-speed that I fell in love with. Mind you, it was a 2-door 5-speed that I sold for $300. But we'll
You
get
are
into
dumb.
that. I am a moron. Yes, I know. So I'm talking to my friend who just recently picked up this 95, and I'm like, hey, so you want to trade it for my ZJ? He goes, oh yeah, oh absolutely, dude, I'm totally down. I was kind of blown away, pretty stoked on it, but turns out there's a lot of problems that he did not tell me that this thing had. And so we traded it, and late that weekend, it was the weekend after, we went to this stupid mudding event out in Southwick, Mass, and we were there having a great time. And after the whole mudding, quote unquote mudding event was over, we decided to start drinking. Now, at the time, it was our very, very heavy partying stage, and I was literally like, we were chugging beer through a metal pipe. We were chugging it through a traffic cone. We ended up actually shotgunning beers all together while my sister poured a beer into the oil of the ZJ because the quote unquote beer the Jeep had to chug beer with us. Like, that's how this day was going. Whatever. So we safely drive home through designated drivers, get back to our houses, and behind our friend's house, we were like, dude, let's just go wheeling. Come on, like we'll go get another 18 pack. We already drank a 30 pack between the three of us, so we're feeling good. We need a little bit more. We go out into the woods, and I wish I could show you. So on my Snapchat memories, there's literally a video of me yelling belligerently out the window, looking at my temperature gauge. It is pegged the whole entire time. It was 260, not moving. And we're just mobbing through the woods, just hauling ass, because we've dirt biked in these woods for probably, I'd say, about 6 years, so we know these trails. Cruising along, and now we got bored of our normal trails, so we're like, all right, let's switch this up. So we just start cruising through the woods, just trailblazing. We're bashing through trees, and it did not matter what we were going through. We were just hammering over trees, bushes, does not matter, just bumping into trees, blah 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 blah. All of a sudden, we come to this little lake thing. It was actually a drainage pond for one. It was was a club that was in the woods. It was like kind of like a Lions Club, Elks Club, that kind of thing. And as I was going around it, I had bald tires. Remember how I was telling you the 31s are bald as hell? These were now on the XJ. I'm going around this pond. The front end slips in. So I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to back up. So I slapped it in reverse really quick, floored it, and then the ass end slid in because I was only in two-wheel drive at the time. Now I'm in the pond. Like, I'm literally swimming. I'm hearing the, that usual, like, what you hear when you're watching the YouTube videos of the guys in the quads, like going through the Muskeg or whatever in Canada, that nasty noise. And I'm just going.
I'm very familiar with it.
Good
oh yeah, your little
times.
adventure at Roush Creek.
Yeah, not a good time, but a good time nonetheless.
That was an excellent time.
And so I'm just kind of like bubbling forward, and like I'm still moving though because the bottom was just super nasty. Like it was more like wet dirt. It wasn't really mud, so I wasn't sinking. So I'm like cruising, and I'm barely going fast enough, but I'm flooring it like fully rev limiter, everything, hoping that I get enough traction to make it to the other side and get out. There was no chance, dude. I was maybe doing 2 miles an hour, so I just kept going forwards, backwards. I turn on the light, and I look down, and my buddy Brandon is like playing with water that is pissing in through the door. He's just like, oh, look at this. It's coming in. Like, I mean, it looked like, watching a cartoon of a guy standing next to a dam, and the dam starts cracking and the water starts shooting through. Like, that's exactly what was going on. So now I realize there's no shot of me getting out of this super simple. So I hop out. Brand new Red Wing boots. Brand new. I mean, I probably first time wearing them. That kind of brand new.
You gotta break them in.
Sounds like this could be chalked up to being young and dumb, full of cum.
Oh, it's horrible. It was beyond horrible. It was one of the worst decisions ever. My buddy Brandon ended up getting naked to jump out because he didn't want to get his new khakis dirty. Oh, yeah, dude. He was full-blown butt-ass naked, swimming. We had to swim because this water was up to my chest. But end of the night, we got home safely. Thank God a buddy of ours came with this Cummins and picked us up at 3 a.m. I posted a video on my Snapchat. I'm like, we're stuck and we're all drunk and like... So he needed help, and like that's it. That's all I said. No other words. And my buddy ended up showing up to the spot somehow. I mean, I don't really remember that well, but yeah, we got home. The Jeep was disgusting, and for the rest of its, I think it was probably about 12 months after that, its nickname was Pond Scum because it smelled so bad. Worst smell. I don't even want to think about it. I'm gonna start gagging just thinking about how bad this thing smelled.
I gotta get the coal mud out of my goddamn Corboos, and it's pissing me off because there's nothing else in my Jeep to make it stink at this point. So it's gotta be my fucking seats.
Yeah, or some random insulation under the dash or something that just...
Nah, that shit's all gone. Like... It's stripped to fuck.
Yeah, I missed that 95. Even though like that smell was disgusting, but it was the first Jeep that I wrenched on. I did a head gasket, a valve cover gasket. I did all that before Go Topless Day that I actually met Luke. Funny enough, the day that his elusive ZJ buggy, he was parked next to us, and we actually convinced him to flip it because he was playing around on this massive rock that he had no business being on, but he was. And we're like, crawl it, dude, crawl it. And he's like, okay. It's like, pops it into drive, flips this thing instantly. We were all cheering for him. It was exciting. But I met him that night or that day. Didn't really get to
and then
talk
we
to him,
ripped
but...
off the goddamn fender because you guys were stacking tires, and Colin comes up to me and he goes, yo, if I destroy your fender, can I, like, get you another one and we call it good? And I'm like, whatever, I'll just weld the fucking fender to the tube work. I don't care. So this kid Colin just hops up on my tire and like smashes the whole fender in, so it blows the body mounts for it off and like shoves it into the wheel well, stacking his Jeep on mine. And I'm just chuckling about it. And I think it was Cody, Brandon, his girlfriend, and Brandon's girlfriend, and they were all just kind of like laughing, and we talked about it a little bit.
Was that the crew? Because I was there as well, and I don't really remember the people who were there.
Yeah,
but
it was them.
Yeah,
it
we
was-
were literally right next to you guys. So like,
Did one
if
of you
you-
who had the V10? Was that one of you guys?
no,
Okay,
no.
I thought
They had Brandon's old Jeep, and they had his Jeep, and his Jeep was like the white one on 31s, if I remember right.
Yep, and my
Did you-
buddy had the lapis blue, like stupid clean lapis blue, Cherokee. That was also there. That
I
is
love
now
that color.
totaled. Oh, it's gorgeous. If I were to get another Cherokee, it'd have to be lapis blue, or one's getting painted lapis. I don't care.
Dude, it doesn't matter. You just find a spray paint color you like, and you just go to town as the body folds around the tube.
Yeah,
That's the
that's why I
way.
like. That's why I like black. The Krylol or Kryol. What's it?
Krylon?
Krylon. There we are. The double black or the 2 times black, whatever the fuck that means. It matches perfectly to my body color. It's amazing. I love it.
So I've been using the Krylon navy blue because it's close enough to my body color that I can just keep overspraying the tube and not care. And like as I'm chopping away at the rear, I'm gonna just paint everything that I put on there that same color blue. And I did my rear bumper in it, and I actually kind of like it. But
So, question, Graham, how did you actually get into wheeling? I don't think I've ever heard that story. I kind of knew Luke's and I kind of knew Richie's, but I mean they're both in like redneck towns, you know. So like they're surrounded by woods. Okay, Richie looking at me weird right now. Of course you live in the woods. How did you get into
Only a
wheeling?
little.
Yeah. So up until probably, I want to say it must have been like 2015. I didn't give a shit about cars. I absolutely didn't care. I had no interest in them. My dad he's always been into cars. He's got a bunch of, pretty classic cars. He's got a CJ5, Grand Wagoneer. I drove that all through high school. I didn't realize how fucking cool that was till like after I started getting into cars. But I
You
went
drove
to
a Grand Wagoneer all through high school?
Yep. Yep.
That's exciting. I wish
No,
I
it's
got to drive
it's
one of
fucking cool,
those.
but I didn't think about it at the time. It just didn't register with me. I just didn't care. I was just basically a nerd living in
okay, nerd.
suburban fucking Massachusetts. Like there was nothing to taint me, into any of the more redneck blue collar hobbies that I have sort of embraced now. But what sort of got me started was I went to school at UMaine for 2 years, and I had a buddy with this ridiculous red TJ on 35s. It had some body lift in it too. It had a pretty, I don't think he had the body lift in it anymore, but it was on at least 4 inches of lift. The thing was ridiculous. It looked like shit. Like it was a disgusting car. And I was like, whoa, that's actually kind of cool. I'd never seen anything like that. It just wasn't there was no cars like that in, by the ocean in Massachusetts where I was.
Or if you saw one, I would imagine it was just like driving by. It wasn't like something that you actually got to.
Yeah, I
around.
wasn't like sitting in it or helping like work on it and realize how like cool it was to drive something that shitty, I guess. I think the thing that really like got me hooked was he had gone home for the weekend to do something to it. Like the motor had blown up. He'd sunk it in a pond. Like it looked like a puddle, I guess, and the front end just went straight in. Motor immediately destroyed. And they couldn't get it out, so it was in there for a while. So the motor was just junk. So he had gone home, done a motor swap in a weekend, and drove it back. And in my mind, I was like, "That's kind of sketchy."
Yeah.
You put the motor in and then you drive it up here, like. And he wasn't close to school. He lived in Maine, but he wasn't close. I mean, Bangor from where he was coming from was at least 2.5 hours away. So I was like, huh, that's kind of cool. So I was looking at cars at that point because.
And look at you at Roush.
I was, yeah, I know. I was at that point I was looking at cars because I was at that point, I wanted a car. I wanted to be able to drive around, and I had some money. And I was looking at Jeeps because my buddy had this TJ that I really liked, and I saw all the cool 1-ton XJs, and I was like, those things are fucking cool. I want one. So I never thought I'd ever have one that was cool, but I had I started looking, and I had a couple that I were looking at, and back in Massachusetts, I was having my dad help me look because I still knew nothing about cars. At this point I had the bug was planted, but it didn't really affect much. I just had a car that I now kind of liked. So I did end up picking up a Cherokee for way too much money. I think I spent probably $3,000 on my current Jeep that I have now, and wasn't a horrible deal, wasn't a great deal. No, definitely
In
not
all
a good deal.
honesty, you got your usage out of it for $3,000 because you're wheeling the same Jeep that I have built 2 in the same time frame. So
Your current Jeep is your first ever XJ?
Yep. It's
Oh
first
my
ever
God.
vehicle.
That's impressive.
That's actually impressive.
Yep.
Holy crap! I've had 6. So
No,
I'm
this
a
is
horrible person.
this is the only one I've ever had. I bought it bone stock, relatively clean. It's a 2000, so it had the classic 2000 head gasket issue. So I immediately had to swap the cylinder head. It didn't go to a shop. I did it myself. That was the first big project I ever did on the thing. It's still holding strong to this day. Knock on wood.
Stock.
It's gonna blow up on your way home today.
Did did you go with the 98 head, or was it stock?
I bought a Clearwater head. At that point, I was
Oh.
like, yeah. So I
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know if it's better or worse. It seems like it's doing pretty good. But
Still
I mean, and that
holds
was
up.
I wasn't thinking about mods or anything at that point. I was like, okay, my car needs a new cylinder head. I didn't know anything about Jeeps. So, I mean, had read at that point that you could use an older style head, but I didn't want to deal with that. So new parts. I'm dumb. Didn't know anything about cars. Give me the new head with all the pieces so I can just bolt it on. Bolted on pretty good. The block was not decked, so it's probably warped and other bullshit, but it's a 4.0. It's fine. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter.
It loves it. Loves every second of breathing through the coolant.
Yep. But other than that, for a while I didn't do anything with it. It was just the driver. I drove it back and forth to Maine a few times.
with a 3-foot stinger.
Oh no, that didn't come till later, but yes. Eventually we'll get there. So while I was at UMaine, nothing really changed. I painted the hood stripes that are on it now. Those I painted at UMaine. Those have not been touched since. They're still in pretty good shape, considering we did it in a parking lot.
Wait, your Jeep has racing stripes?
On the hood.
No, it does not.
It's not
Yeah.
racing
Why?
stripes.
How have I never noticed this?
You didn't
hood's
like the
painted.
hood, the indents. People do it all the time. That was the first thing I ever did to the thing.
Oh my God, I've never noticed that.
Huh.
Oh my! The amount of times I have wheeled with your Jeep and I have never noticed that. Oh, kind of cool.
Yeah. So that was really the only thing I did. I did wheel it a few times. We went to a couple places. It was more like logging roads, and a buddy's backyard. He lived up, way past even Bangor. It was way up there. It was almost like a camp. But the guy that's where he lived, and he worked 10 minutes away, and we'd go up and hang out with him every other weekend, or he'd come down and we'd just drink beer and eat pizza and other shit. So that's, I got my first taste of wheeling really there, at that point in time, but my Jeep wasn't built. There was nothing, I wasn't going to be doing anything cool with it. But at that point I knew this was actually pretty fun. I want to do this. Now I've got to lift the thing. A bunch of stuff.
It was rough country.
Hmm?
Tell me it was a rough country lift.
Yeah, it was. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah, gotta love it.
Yeah. So I ended up.
Although, on that note, I will 100% endorse Rough Country for their control arms and their long arms.
Yeah, mine lasted for me for at least 2.5 years of hard wheeling before one of those control arms blew out on me.
Yeah, and
Or
that
that
could
motor
be
is just-
fixed. Those are still sitting at the shop. That could be fixed by just replacing that one Johnny joint.
Yep.
But we will see
Well, I
what
mean,
will
shit.
happen with them.
My rough country shocks lasted like 6 years on my truck, and it took me jumping my full size pickup to blow out one shock. The other shock was still okay.
Yeah, I mean those rough country ones, they're not the best, but they're not the worst. It did not ride nice, but that was I ended up leaving UMaine and was back in Massachusetts, and I was working. I don't know if it was full time at that point or what it was, but I was working. I had a steady stream of income, so I was dumping money into the Jeep. And this process continued for about 3 years while I was sort of in between trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. The Jeep was sort of like, okay, this is the only thing I know is like definitely cool and like that I want to work on. Like a lot of my hobby at the before cars was was really computers and technology, and I've been turning that into a job, and that's not really what I want to do when I get home from working on computers and working in in an IT environment. I don't really want to come home and sit at a desk and work on a computer. So for about 2.5 3 years, there was the a phase where I was with my buddy Jacob and Dave. Both of you guys know Jacob, maybe
Yep.
Dave to an extent, but those guys were
Pizza guy or Domino's guy.
yeah.
Nice.
They're both. I haven't talked to Dave in forever, but Jacob obviously I still talk to a whole bunch. I mean, Dave had a Jeep, and at that point, Jacob had his black XJ two-door.
Two-door?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
we just sort of like
Jacob had an XJ?
yeah, he did. He had a black one.
My buddy
I didn't
Brandon
know that.
almost bought. Me and Brandon
You
literally
should've. That
drove
thing was
all the
fucking
way out
great.
there. And Brandon was like, dude, it has shock hoops in the back and
It
like
has a stroker motor.
yeah, it had
Also,
a
the shock hoops were
stroker.
not bolted in, so that's not a selling point. Or they weren't welded in. It was literally just in there, and Jacob had never done anything with them. But with those two guys, Dave had a habit of like he'd find something really cool, he'd somehow find the money or find somebody who would be willing to buy it, and we'd go and get it. So there were several adventures to just out to a random spot to get a Jeep, and then we'd wheel there or do something stupid. And at this point, I was on 4.5 inches of lift and 33-inch tires. Like my Jeep was like basic ass normal XJ. It was lifted and capable, no lockers or anything, but it was lifted and it could drive around, and hang out with my couple other buddies, and we'd drive around on dirt roads and through snow and mud and other stuff. And then through one of these things, Jacob ended up getting tires because his Jeep had 31s and 30s. It was like a mismatch of tire sizes. So we went and we met up with this dude in Natick who ended up being Sean and got 35s off of Sean. And that's where I met Sean, and he'd been talking about building a club, and it's like, hey, if you guys are interested, I'll let you know if we ever end up doing this. And we of course said sure, yeah, definitely, we'd love to go off-roading with more people. And I think it was a couple months later he ended up starting the club, and we went down and just sat around a fire, and that's sort of what started the club. I think it was in Scott's backyard. Was where it
Don's
was.
brother, right?
Yeah, Sean's brother Scott.
So, Graham, were you one of the first members of the club?
Yep.
He
Oh,
OG
okay.
like old English in that brown paper bag.
And I had met. I didn't meet Colin until a little later. I met him as a person at the fire, but I didn't really like associate him with his Jeep. But really, I think a few events into having been in the club and we were trying to figure out what we were going to be doing, there was a spot in Blackstone we'd go, and they had a little park, little rock gardens and stuff. It was a really fun spot. It could have been developed and made into something really cool, but
Like
long
that's
story
right
short,
on
the relationship there sort of got iffy, so we don't go there anymore. But that's where I saw Colin's Jeep, full cage, 37s on 3/4 ton axles. I was like, whoa, that's like a pretty cool build for for a Cherokee around here. Like I never really put the pieces together and thought, okay, how do I get my Jeep from here to something that's on 1-ton axles and bigger tires and has a cage and body armor. And he sort of that the vision there sort of got me my gears turning as to, okay, well, what are the steps you need to get there? Because before that, I was really just like, I just had my Jeep and my lift and my tires, and that's just what it was. It was doing everything I wanted it to because I wasn't pushing myself. I wasn't part of a club. I wasn't doing cool stuff. And once you see people who are doing cool things, you're like, okay, well, now how do I get my vehicle to that level so I can also do those things? So that's sort of what got me, spiraling down this trail of, eventually, I put the 35s on it, I put the lockers in it, immediately noticed a massive difference in how, cool wheeling could be. Eventually did the long arms, realized that you can have a shitty Jeep with big tires that actually drives good on the road. Keep in mind, I'm driving this thing to and from work like an hour and a half to 2 hours every day. Like, this is my vehicle. I was beating the shit out of this thing on weekends every couple months, and then and working on it almost nonstop, doing various things. We did the manual swap, a bunch of other random stuff. Like, I don't know how I did it. It was
lots of thrashing.
Yeah. A lot of Jacob too. I'd come home from work and he'd be sitting in my, not in my driveway. He'd be on the street in his car. He'd be like, "Okay, we're working on it, right?" It was like, some days I definitely wouldn't have worked on it if he hadn't been out there fucking waiting. So,
well,
things
that's
slowed
just
down
being a
now,
good
but
friend.
yeah, I know. I'm trying to pay it back to him now, get his stuff rolling, but my stuff's,
Jacob.
my stuff's been solid now, though. I mean, since I bought Luke's axles, did the cage. I mean, like you were saying, Luke, you wanted a rig on 37s that was reliable and did everything you wanted it to. That's basically where I'm at right now. I still have plans and things I want to do with it, and I have pieces that I'm going to put in eventually, but I don't need to. It does everything I want it to do at this point. I've got 37s, 7, 8-ton, 1-ton, everything but the Dana 50's strong as shit.
Yeah, but that Dana 50 holds up to a fuck ton of abuse. It was entertaining as hell to watch you on whatever day it was at Battlegrounds running that black with the mud and the snow on the ground, where you just like ended up having to get on it and pull tire a couple of feet, bouncing rev limiter, which is definitely not your style. As the whole fucking thing is like sliding in this gold on its side, and he's pulling the front tire like 2 feet, and he just stayed in it and made it up
I know.
black climb.
Ever since Graham did his roll cage, fucking, he's been a new man.
The roll cage increases confidence by like a factor of 10. It was insane. I mean, even when I had the 1-ton axles, there's this huge limiting factor, like just sort of resting on me. Like, okay, you've got these massive axles. The thing's more capable than the body is. It's not safe to be doing the stuff I was doing with it.
I feel that.
And the axles and the tires and the all the traction the thing had, I could go up and not anything, but a lot of things that I wanted to, but without that, the cage to sort of be like my parachute in case something happens. Like, it definitely holds you back in some way. And as soon as I had that, now you can.
Fun.
Yeah.
So now you were saying like your rig is more capable kind of than what you're willing to do. Now, question, because now my rig is more capable to do than what my girlfriend is willing to do. And that has become a problem. How do I get her more comfortable being in my rig? Like, I mean, I'm at the point where I'm just ready to get her in the passenger seat, buckle her in, and purposefully roll it, just so she can realize that if we roll, we're not gonna die. Like, it is so. It is not a good idea. Is that?
I'm just gonna go with throwing out there the classic argument of just put a fucking cage in it. At least, you know, a nice note over the roof line with a decent B pillar and a good C tie-in, maybe. So that way, if you do roll it, it's not going to be an issue, and you got harnesses, and you know your seats ain't gonna fucking yeet you clean out of the vehicle. But that's just my humble opinion. If you're gonna be rolling it on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're definitely right, and I know the way that I should do it. I'm just like, it's frustrating. We were going down a goddamn blue trail. It got mildly off camber, and instantly she's just like, I don't like this. I don't like this. And it's frustrating because now I have to back up, get off the obstacle. I now need to understand, like, I need to calm down now because I'm talking to my girlfriend. You know, now I have to sleep next to her tonight, so I gotta deal with her, you know, make sure she's not gonna get all pissed off at me. So I gotta get her comfortably off into off trail. Then I go through the obstacle, and then I have to wait for her to hop back in. You know, it's a little annoying. Don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to
I'm kind of just used to that because Lil Titties does not like.
Who? Who? Who
Sorry,
are we talking about?
that is her self-appointed group chat nickname.
Okay.
But my girlfriend.
Okay.
She's fucking awesome, but she does not like it when I start like pulling tire and being dumb. But on the other hand, I can understand some of where she's coming from because I have this bad habit of I don't like doing the shit where I'm scared of rolling it. Like, I've got a cage and everything, and when I get in the right mood, I will do anything. But sometimes I'm just like not feeling like rolling my shit today. And yeah.
Yeah, like when you're in a situation or you're coming up to an obstacle that you know, okay, there's a slim chance I could roll, you say, hey, you might want to hop out for this. But like Caitlin just physically does not care if she feels that the Jeep is gonna roll. Not me, because obviously with me too, like if I'm coming up to an obstacle and I'm like, ooh yeah, I can kind of see how this is gonna kind of do weird things. I tell her like, hey, hop out, take some videos, photos, whatever it may be, but like you might want to hop out for this. But dude, we were going down a goddamn blue, and I was just turning left on an obstacle, and my right tire was up on a rock, my left tire was down off the rock, and it just like barely went to like a 5-degree. No, it was probably more than probably like a 15-degree angle. But like she just started freaking out, and I'm like, oh god, kill me! Like back up, throw it in the reverse, fucking crawl back all over it, and then kick her out, and then shut the door, and then literally I just like plopped through it in 2 seconds, and I'm sitting there staring at her like, did we die? Like what?
Well, see,
Just
that's
throw
the
some
exact
better
scenario
seats
that
in
I
it.
have with Jess every time, where she just refuses to be in the Jeep for anything.
Yeah.
She'll ride with me up to the obstacle, immediately get the fuck out, and then afterwards she'll get back in. It doesn't matter if I'm going up a rock that's only a foot tall.
You didn't tell her that when she was riding with me at Badlands. Dude, I sent them up like 2 super sketchy obstacles to the point that my door, like where my handle was dragging on a rock on the ground.
Badlands was a good fucking
Dude, no wonder
trip.
she didn't like it. I was in like a like
that was on her, dude.
Hey, luckily she was on the high side, so like the high side doesn't feel as bad as the low side. But yeah, that kind of explains why she didn't want to ride with me for the rest of the weekend, because I didn't know.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
I kind of peg my fun meter though when you start like there's one obstacle at Harris that I enjoy doing, but it's like right at the limit of where I enjoy doing it. And it's this like probably 8 or 9 foot tall vertical face. But to make it up it, you gotta find the fucking spot where the Jeep feels like it's about to unload, and then you like set yourself up looking in between these 2 trees, and you kind of look down the body line to make sure that you're about to clear, and you just let her eat in first, and you get up it, and it doesn't feel as horrible once you're going up it. But I think Cody rode with me for it, and it's like when you start popping that front tire in the air, if you're not fully committed, it gets really sketchy and you feel like you're gonna roll, so you gotta like clutch in and just roll back down the hill if you're getting out of it. And
Definitely
that
feels
shit's where I
worse.
kind of draw the line. And it feels way worse in the cabin than it is outside.
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, it's definitely weird though, like, because we could be. I mean, it really depends on the rig too. I mean, if let's say you were in a buggy and you had suck down and you pulled down like 2 inches on that, probably wouldn't feel that bad. Or if you had like Colin's rig that has a little like has controlled rebound compared to your coil with normal shock style rig,
Oh,
but
yeah.
definitely
don't-
sitting in the passenger seat, like obviously like I trust your driving, so as I was sitting in there I was very comfortable, like just kind of riding along going, all right, let's have some fun. But if I was in my Jeep, oh, I'd probably be pooping my pants a little bit, coming up to this thing. Like,
That black
So-
wall that we did that day at Harris was fun because we got up on this and like a couple other people in the group had just kind of like went around it. It wasn't anything particularly awesome, but it was like a flat wall that was maybe 6 or 7 feet tall but really steep.
Yeah.
So you just hop on it and the front end like unloads, the Jeep hops, and then we just hook as it's unloaded. That was a fucking good one.
Yeah,
And
no, do the wall of death.
I
It was
need
the same
to do
thing,
that.
but with
No,
more
are
length.
we are not as cool as you, Graham. That
Uh,
dude, that was like, it's a problem like when the whole group's like, yeah, Graham, do it, and then Graham actually like, goes pulls his chest back a little bit, walks over to his Jeep, and now we're all like, oh fuck, like no, he's actually considering doing this. And then, like 5 of us individually walk over, we're like talking to him, like, hey, like you don't have to do this, right? Like it's okay to not do this. He's like, yeah, no, he's like, I'm just gonna put my tires on and feel it out, Dude, that was nuts. We'll post, or we'll have Luke post a video onto the Instagram with that video.
Even the
because-
video doesn't do it justice. That is
No,
that
it
is
doesn't.
Graham, what was your mindset going into that though?
so honestly, if the only reason I did it is because Mike Craig, he wasn't coming at me with the same enthusiasm that everybody else was coming at me with. He was like, just do it, come on, do it. Right? He came at me, he was like, hey, just put your tires on it. It's a dry day. See how it does. I mean, everybody else has sort of it's really a one-shot obstacle, right? I mean, I went up it and didn't have enough speed in one run, but I had backed off. I know my rig well enough to know if it's gonna, slide to the side or anything like that, so I can let off and back off. And that's what I did. And then at that point, I knew I was pretty damn close to the top, so I just needed a little more and to commit a little more, and that's what got me up it. But if he hadn't have come up to me and told me with a fairly level head, I don't know if I would have gotten my nerves together. That's definitely the most nervous I've ever been on an obstacle in my Jeep. That's sort of been I'm way more comfortable with walls now than I used to be because of that obstacle. A lot of that, I think that's what it comes down to, right? Is if you put yourself in positions where you're towing the line of what you're comfortable with, and it's okay, then you're that much more comfortable going and doing something that is similar, or even not even as bad. Like a lot of the stuff I've done since, I've been way more comfortable with because I did that, and the feeling that I got from that obstacle wasn't nearly. I mean, that adrenaline rush for that run versus some of these other ones isn't even close to the same. So and it definitely helps having calmer nerves for the slightly difficult stuff versus the crazy stuff, right? I can go through something that I probably would used to get nervous about and be calm. And I noticed that when we were on this run, last week or last weekend, was people were like, "Oh yeah, dude, like I was nervous for you." I was like, I wasn't nervous. Like I know my rig. I've done a lot of stuff way worse than this. This wasn't bad. Like it's all about just just the repetition and putting yourself in spots that are
I think one thing that
foreign,
does
I
help
guess.
with your situation is you've built that Jeep stage by stage by stage, so you know it really well.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like I'm building way too big of a rig for what I actually need for my level of like what I'm comfortable with wheeling at the moment. But I broke a bunch of shit, and it's like if I'm going to already be doing body work because I am moving my rear axle and my leaf springs are already shot, and I have to build another cross member for the doubler anyway because the rig needed lower gearing. Um, why not just link it? Well, now I'm linking the rig and I'm putting coilovers in it, and it's got 6-to-1 low range now. So, but I feel like that's a bit more rig than I actually need for what I want it to do, and I kind of don't want to like destroy it at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's like why I'm looking at building a buggy and starting to acquire parts for it, because I feel like with something that I know that is solid, I'm much more comfortable with bouncing that down a hill than my Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at mine now, and it's not the prettiest Jeep by any means, but it's
So well though.
I restrain myself enough to keep it intact,
Yeah.
and I've got more body panels for the front on the way. The fronts, but keep in mind,
Oh,
these are the same panels I've had on this thing for 5 years. I've been
That's
wheeling this
incredible.
thing for a
That's pretty
solid
impressive.
3 years, and those are the panels that I've had since then. So, I mean, you can keep a full body rig in pretty good shape in New
I
England and
don't
still do
disagree.
stupid shit if you have some restraint.
I don't disagree, but at the same time, I feel like if I'm going to be putting stickies on something, it might as well have a little bit of extra horse ponies, and it might as well be something more fitting to the or like the harder parts of the terrain, and I can just leave my Cherokee alone.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, if I was, I don't know, I'm definitely at a similar point to you, where I think I could do harder stuff, but the full body definitely holds me back a little bit. But I almost think that's kind of, it's almost more impressive when you can get something that's full bodied through something harder
Oh, I
and
totally
not
agree.
destroy the body. But it's not as easy, and it's not you
I'm
might not
gonna
be able to
be
take the dumbest lines, but I don't necessarily want to take the dumbest lines. I already do some pretty stupid lines, and you know, I don't know. I think at some
I
point I'll definitely
agree.
want to build a buggy, but I
I'm gonna
don't.
be doing stupider shit this year anyway, but at the same time, I'm just saying, like, from a more so, I guess, a safety and like a confidence point of view, I feel like something that is going to be reliable after more than one or like 3 flops is where I want to go, because like I want to be able to just accept rolling it and not have it be a problem.
Well, if you build your cage right, it shouldn't be a problem. You just have and
Yeah, but
but
the
you're a
other
2-door, so it's harder to get parts when
Die
you're.
like a man and accept
Mm.
defeat. No seatbelt, no cage.
no. How about no? Because like I've come
True.
close to rolling that thing, and I'm okay with rolling it, but at the same point in time, I'm not even like down where I would have flopped it at Kish's would not have been fun. I think I might have ended up on my roof. So at the same time, I don't exactly want to go and do that. But it is fun to push the limits, especially like I enjoy when you end up doing stuff where you end up with like a tire hanging 2 or 3 feet in the air, and every little movement you make gets it to the point of like you feel it in your rig more than just like going up a trail. Um,
Yeah, I feel that.
anyone have any points that they want to add in before we wrap this up? Because we're starting to go to about an hour and 40.
I'll do a
Oh,
quick
well,
run. Well, I didn't get to talk about how I got into wheeling. I'll do a quick like 3
What are you
minutes.
talking about? You got into wheeling from Pond Scum.
Nope. No, actually,
Well,
that's
I
Okay,
mean,
well,
not.
then
let's
continue.
finish that
Continue.
off.
I thought you were done.
His layup to me was pretty solid, but it was a little late. So I actually like my intro to wheeling was when I was really young. I was probably about 4 years old, and my dad had an old CJ, and seriously, some of my fondest memories was being in that CJ. Like I still remember him running out of gas. Oh no, the Jeep died in the middle of a big wide parking lot, and I had to sit in the driver's seat with my foot on the clutch as he got behind the Jeep, pushed it through the parking lot, and then I had to pop start it at 4 years old. And the thing went, and my dad had to like run next to me, like push me out of the driver's seat as he was hopping in. And like it's crazy to think like, or him backing up onto a snowbank in the middle of a big wide parking lot. Like it's cool to see how that mixed with my grandfather's love of building cars kind of mixed the two things for me together to where like I got to really enjoy off-roading and enjoying Jeeps and getting into cheap shit boxes and building them. And like it's really cool that nowadays I'm hanging out with you four idiots or three idiots. Sorry, I miscounted.
Well,
And
there's a lot more than 3 of us, but yeah.
yeah, but I'm saying like in this current
Yes.
chat,
There are more than 3 idiots have influenced you, but
oh, you do. There's quite a few. It's pretty cool though that like to think of my Jeep was just like a little Cherokee to now it's very well capable. So yeah, that's how I got into wheeling, and then it turned into the '95 Cherokee, and yeah, that's kind of where got my little spiel in.
Well, see, I think that's the cool part for me was everybody who we can get to join the group and stick with it. Like, they incubate for a couple years and then they end up with something cool. Like when Richie first got his Jeep, it was, it started out small. I mean, that thing grew really quick, and it's been capable,
my
almost since the
Jeep,
beginning, I'd say.
well, I like,
And it's really
as I tell
budget
everyone,
build.
I bought my Jeep on like a Monday or Tuesday. I had it registered on Wednesday. Drove it down to the shop on a Friday and drove it home lifted on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like the thing got lifted within the first week. And for the longest for the longest time it was stock everything. I had a welded rear end and a lunchbox in the front. I had stock
And ZJ
control
steering.
and everything. Yeah,
you had ZJ steering.
But
Yeah, it had the
35.
classic Luke Pearson lifted shipbox recipe, which is welded rear, lunchbox front, ZJ steering. Boom,
and
done.
I did my best to follow all the guys on the bigger axles and bigger tires.
Yeah, it does. I'm not knocking it. Hell, I wish I had the support group essentially to build my shit on a budget when I first was getting into it, because I could have saved so much money, and I would have had the same result. Like, it's insane to think of how little I knew at the time, right? If I had just known a couple more people, I could have gotten stuff for way cheaper, stuff for free. I mean, now I can sling a 231 from somebody for I don't even have to pay, right? I can just reach out and I'll find when we went to Roush, right? My transfer case blew up, I think the weekend before or something. So I needed to find a transfer case, swap all my guts into it, slap that thing back in. It still makes horrendous noises because the pump is the problem, I think. I don't know why.
Let's not forget that there was one sitting in the truck at Roush in case that one grenaded that we were going to swap the 231 into, or the 231 SYE into.
Well, that wouldn't have been too bad either. Transfer cases aren't really hard to swap, right? It's just...
we could have left the stock chain and shit in there and just slapped the fucking SYE in, and you would have been up and running and
Yeah, but it's not with my chain.
Saying just
all the
to get
pieces that. Oh yeah, if my chain had blown up, but my chain's not gonna blow up, or shouldn't blow up, because it's wider than a factory Jeep 231, which is the spot that breaks, other than the shift fork for neutral and drive.
Well,
That's
that's
what
like-
always gets me.
If this shitbox Dana 20 blows up, I've got a spare 231. I'll just throw a super short fucking slip yoke eliminator on there and slap that in behind the crawl box with the wide chain for now until I figure something more permanent out. But that's like a $350, $400 replacement case, worst case scenario. They're not
Yeah.
bad.
I'm curious to see how that your Dana 20 swap ends up going, because I mean, it just doesn't sound like a lot of people use them. I don't know if is it bigger than a Dana 300 or no.
It's comparable in size. I'm lucky because it came with the 32 spline output, so basically the gears are about the same size as a 300. The rear output is a 32 spline, so that's the same as a 300. The output to the front axle is a 10 spline, and there is no upgrade for that. However, I have 3 of them sitting on the shop shelf waiting to go if I do blow the front input, but I highly doubt I'm going to blow the front input because of who has owned that rig and the fact that they all still have factory front inputs.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited for the front digs because I'd like to be able to get the crap out of my tires before I go to hit an obstacle. And
Yeah.
then just, flip a lever and go back to 4-wheel.
No, I'm excited to see your Jeep once it's actually back out. We'll
I'm
see how long
very
that takes
excited
you.
to see how it performs.
It's going to be cool.
The funniest thing is just having the doubler sitting on the bench, and you spin one of the yokes and watch the input just going 20,000 miles a fucking minute. It's so entertaining.
You want to segue this one into another podcast, and we'll call this one here?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it sounds good to me.
I don't know if you wanted to end it or not at first, or if you want to do like an actual outro or whatever you want to do.
I could sing.
Nah, I think we're gonna call it on that note.
Adios. Au revoir.
Yeah,
So long.
This was fun. I enjoyed
Yeah, it was a good chat with you guys. I mean,
Yeah, I even learned a few new things about you guys.